selling for me. But it's so true, very true. I just was passing around the McCoy Silk. The cover on the Love, Peace, Love, and Understanding is a gloss, I believe, and then the guts of the book is a silk. And you can see everybody that picks it up, you know, it's very tactile. Think about the tactile. You play with it, and it feels really good, and that's important.
It's like the canvas of the shoe.
Pardon me?
It's like the canvas of the shoe.
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, because that particular piece, it was at a convention, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, with a group of designers, and they were given a blank Converse tennis shoe, and the theme was peace, love, and understanding, and design your own pattern on the shoes. So that's what that piece is, and I have more of those. But that's an example of silk, and then I'm going to pass around 2 examples of dull. And, you know, again, I'm not going to read everything for you, but if you think about why and when you would want to use a silk, a dull, the piece that is the, I forget what it's called, it looks like a leather packet. If you look at some of the imagery in that and the fine detail that you'll pick up in the boots and the just accessories and things like that, but it's a softer touch. That is printed on Opus, which is our mid-grade, or in AFPA terms, a number 2. And then this piece I'll pass around is also printed on dull, but this is printed on Flow, which is our economy grade, and it has fewer fluorescence in the sheet. But I need you to just think about that as we move into the next segment, because McCoy has the highest level of fluorescence in our lineup, Opus the next, and then Flow the least amount of fluorescence. So it's not going to be as blue-white. There's a lot of copy in here. So, and there's a lot of flesh tones that you need to think about, because as we get into paper being the 5th color, that would have an impact. So,
And dulls and silks a lot of times are preferred there's a lot of text to read. You know, gloss has very glare. You know, if you want less glary, and then you got image you want to maybe put a gloss varnish on. There's images, but they want you to be able to read it easily. Yes.
I'm sorry, what did you say this color was?
that's McCoy, I think that's McCoy Gloss. There's production notes in the back.
Yeah, look in the back
And
inside cover.
they did a, I think an overall varnish on that cover, but I'm pretty sure it's McCoy Gloss.
Yeah, one good thing with the Sappy pieces, they always have production notes in the back of all their pieces. So you can see, because that's the other thing too, you look at a piece, can your printer reproduce what you're looking at? That's the question, you know. Unfortunately, Carl has the capabilities that they have to do virtually anything you're going to see. But there's always been a lot of pieces put up in the mills, and people say, great, well, my printer can't do this. And we'll do it. So,
And some of these pieces, like the next one I'll pass around, what Sappy does is we invite our printer partners, customers, friends to send us some of the things that they printed on our products, and we basically have a library of pieces. So if you have an idea or campaign that you're working on and you visit Sappy's website, you may be able to find something in that category to maybe give you some ideas or some help, or you know, you might be working with the partner and say, this is kind of what I want to do. Can you help me with it? So feel free to access that. This piece I'll pass around is printed on McCoy matte. And as we look up here for the attributes around matte papers, Mike Cooper had mentioned that that there's not any calendaring, or very little. At Sappy on our matte papers, there's no calendaring on the matte. It's all in the paper making process. And matte papers are the most open, closest to that paper towel without being an uncoated paper. The fibers, it's a much bulkier sheet because they're not compressed at all. Many of the direct mail or USPS, U.S. Postal Service, 7-point and 9-point caliper is what is required. Many matte papers are made to or offer a caliper basis weight to meet those guidelines. But it is, again, you can look at that surface compared to the very first one if you think about that, and just look at 2 ends of the spectrum. That matte papers are very porous.
And that's a premium matte. Not to interrupt you, just
no.
I was saying because mattes usually are the lower end, and, you know, must have an orange peel effect in the model. You can see that's a premium mat. You can do pretty much whatever you want with a McCoy mat. If you're buying some of the lesser mats, a lot of the direct mail stuff, you put full color on it, it looks like an orange peel, and that's the surface you're seeing. They want to make them bulky for you, so they're giving up the surface to do that. This is kind of the best of all worlds. So again, if you want a mat to perform with from, you got to specify, you know, a high mat, because
That's a
most
great
mats are for line copy, reply card, you know, things like that. If you picture a tarot card and fill something in, that's where most tons of mat is sold. So that's a unique offer.
That's a great point. And the other thing about matte papers is, obviously, if you're going to produce something, or someone's got to have a reply card, they're going to write on it. You know, it's good for anyone to do that. But your printers will tell you that if you produce something on a matte coated paper, they suggest some sort of a varnish in order to protect the surface. Because you could take your thumbnail and go across a matte paper, and you can see it stuck very easily. So just, you know, keep that in mind. And Mike's going to talk a little bit about the uncoated.
We're going to just touch on the uncoated. Kind of like in the coated, the uncoated and the Texan cover mills have really consolidated. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of things in the industry in the U.S. You know, in the coated world, there was Sappi and NewPage domestically, literally. I mean, that's the majority of who's controlling the paper. The uncoated and the book papers, it's IP and Domtar. There's been, each one of those companies I'll name has rolled in 5 other, you know, companies that you probably know. Look at that.
What's that thing?
Finch is still an independent. It's actually on my, Finch is one of the few small mills left that's on my private equity. So they are still around. And Manad not to be another one. So there's a couple small, but again, when we start talking about percentage of the market, I'm talking about 2 companies taking, you know, 70% share, that big of a thing. And in Texan cover, it's Mohawk and Neenah. So you're going to see very shortly from these mills a major consolidation, because less and less Texan covers getting used. So you see some of those brands, you know, rolling into other brands within those families. So that's why I tell you that. When we talk about smooth, if you look, you guys have to share books. This is the Via line. People heard of Via? Via's kind of has every finish. That's why I thought this was a good book to show. We can get you guys copies if you want. When you think of a smooth, it's going to be more closest to a gloss, I guess, when you talk about uncoated. But uncoated is going to show, you know, there's no coating on it, so it's going to show the imperfections of things. So smooth is kind of what you think of. Opaques, offsets are all considered smooth. Next on there, I think we have Wove. Wove and vellum are very, very similar. They have a little bit more of a tooth to them, a little bit more of a feel. Linen, people familiar with linen, think of wallpaper. You know, linen's got a fine texture to it. If you look at wallpaper, you see that's what, you know, we think of when we say linen. Vellum, again, is just another toothy sheet. Satin is like a super smooth. Vertebrates like Finch Fine, so starts with Finch. Satin is just a calendared uncoated sheet that I guess would compare to low-end mats. So they're taking an uncoated sheet, they're not adding coating, but they are running through a super calendar to buff it up a little bit.
Some
So
people
that's,
call it a wash coat.
yeah, wash coat, film coat, you know, that's kind of creative. Laid is a sheet that will have chain marks going down one way, kind of a texture going across the thing. People think of like a classic laid from Neenah. Usually a letterhead application, and if you feel it, it's got almost like the felt-like texture to it. So laid and felt are pretty similar. The only difference between felt and laid is felt doesn't have the chain marks going through it. So it's just got that same texture, almost like corduroy in your pants. 25% cotton was another category, and I'm flying through this stuff. I mean, that's almost universal use for letterhead. And that's just, you know, if someone wants to have their logo or have a logo to make their letterhead or stationery package stand out and have an identity to it, that's really what that category is. So I just flew through that. Any questions?
And I think in your packet, I think there are some definitions of some of the embossed that Mike just went through.
And again, paper rep will have great detail on a lot of these things too for definitions and stuff. The good news, and which is very, very new, is all of these grades and these finishes that I just talked about, I covered quickly. Mohawk has made these grades now to run through the Indigo press. They've actually come out with a separate book that has, it's an unbelievable offering. Before, the only thing that you could use digital was really hard, smooth sheets of paper. They now have the linens and the lathes and the felts and things that can run through their Indigo. And they've actually come out with a separate book on that. And as far as SACI goes too, all these grades we're talking about, with the exception of EuroArt, McCoy, Opus, Flow, come in a digital version as well. So if you have, for the Indigo, and they're all Indigo certified, which is what McCardle just got. So if you have a job you need advanced copies, or you want to do a short run and a big run, you can marry it up and use the same paper, which is exciting because 2 years ago you couldn't do that, or even really a year and a half ago. So that's a new thing. So know that as the world keeps changing, a shorter run, or a mixed run, or advanced copies, we all have different deadlines in our jobs. You can do something on the Indigo and then do the long run and use the same substrate.
Oh, I was just wondering if that also came in for digital.
Yes, yes. They're totally different. I mean, if I can just delve into the digital thing quickly. The Indigo is the highest quality digital, and actually uses what they call wet toner or inks. Every other machine, whether it's iGen, NextPress, Canon's, Ricoh, is all what's called dry toner. So you have to use a different formulation for those grades. The Indigo is the toughest to have, so usually if someone's certified for an Indigo to work in any of the other ones, but there are 2 different classes of paper. So, I mean, that's kind of our job. If you're going to print something digital, we have to make sure we sell them the dry toner version versus the Indigo version. You know, on our website, we have an Indigo, we have a digital category, and then we have a separate Indigo category for our papers. So, but that's a good question. And more, Mohawk has a separate book just for the iGen, for example. You know, so if you have those, if you have an in-house thing and you want to talk to us separately, most people have no idea, you know, about this stuff. I mean, we bought, you know, last March, we bought Xerox's distribution business because they just couldn't distribute product. They didn't know what customers wanted. They really honestly wanted us to just handle the paper. So we've gotten all these different things. Every machine is different in this digital world. So more and more, we're telling the mills, this is what we need. We need to give the customer a book of what works in their equipment, so they can choose, you know, what will be certified. So, yeah. And these literally were launched at D Street, and this is my copy. My name written.
Said differently, he's not.
Actually, McCardle has a copy of himself. And again, all these things, again, we're trying to keep this thing to 45 minutes. We know how tough everyone's time is. If you want us to come back or come see you guys individually, just let your McCardle salesperson know, and we'll have to come out and discuss anything in detail. Okay?